Hi my loves, I am back. It's been a while. I think we haven't seen each other in about 2 weeks. I have spent 3 weeks away from my desk. I went to Austria, visited family, enjoyed the hot weather, and did not do anything related to sewing, designing, or pattern drafting, which is really important for the creative palette. It's important to step away sometimes and then come back and hopefully, as it is in my case, experience a bit of a spring in the step, if you know what I mean. I feel excited to come back. I have a lot of projects lined up that I want to do. There's a lot of things I want to share with you, which I'm very excited about. I'm ready to get back into it. But before I do that, there's a few things that I want to get done to just like get a bit of peace of mind, clean up my place, get a bit of organization in before I start getting creative again. When I was away, I actually got a comment on YouTube asking if I could share how I organize my sewing patterns, the physical sewing patterns that I have, where I store them, how I organize them, what all of that looks like. And I do feel a little bit caught out because I have absolutely no sewing pattern organization whatsoever. Let me show you what I mean. This beast here is a binder that holds all of my physical sewing patterns. Hand drafted ones, Illustrator drafted ones, printed ones, they're all in here. And this is a total mess. How did we get here? Well, when I started making my own clothes again a couple years ago, I started out using a simple craft paper roll with brown craft paper on it that kind of looks like this. And all of my patterns were hand drafted with a Sharpie, with a ruler, like that. I have since started drafting my sewing patterns on Illustrator. So now all of my patterns come from my A4 printer and the pieces look something like this. So they're a little bit more professional looking. They're on white, simple A4 paper. And all of that together is now bunched up in this binder. When I started out, I obviously didn't have that many sewing patterns, and I never kind of stopped and looked around myself and asked myself, okay, wait, how do I actually organize this in a good way? So this is how this mess came about. It's also not very easy to find things in here because there's no images, there's no labels, which is not a good idea. So my task today is to try and organize this in a way that makes sense and have peace of mind and make it easy for myself to find things in this piece of a folder. It probably also means that I'm going to get rid of a few of my older sewing patterns that are hand drafted that I don't use anymore, I don't need anymore. So it's also a good, house cleaning exercise, if you will. I do have already an idea on how I want to organize this, so let me show you what I'm thinking. Right, so the first step that I need to take is definitely sort this out. There's so much in here that I don't need. There's so much in here that is probably a duplicate. There's a lot in here that I maybe have since reproduced and improved, so a lot of it needs to go. This is going to take a while and I'm not going to bore you with it. I'm just going to try and sort it out and do a bit of a time lapse. And then we get to organizing, and I think what I want to do is to sort of create a sort of a leaflet for every pattern with the technical drawing, and if I have a picture of me wearing the thing, so I do remember in like 5 years time, oh yeah, that's a dress that I made in 2024, 2023, and that's what it looked like. So I'm first going to sort this out, do a bit of a time lapse, and then we reconvene, and I'm going to show you how I do this leaflet, probably on Canva. So this was one of my very first sewing patterns that I made back in 2020. That was the pandemic year. That was before I started my YouTube channel. And that was the first time in probably 5 years after graduating fashion school that I made anything. Really. I hadn't really touched a sewing machine for about 5 years after fashion school. I studied communications, I did other things, I traveled loads, and I basically had just moved to London and explored the city loads, met new people, and didn't really have any time or passion for sewing whatsoever. But when the pandemic hit, I was bored, as was everybody, and I thought to myself, you know what, let me order a really cheap sewing machine and try something new. And this beast, which makes no sense whatsoever, was the first sewing pattern piece that I made. and it's supposed to be for a little black dress, and this is the little black dress in question. This is on my personal Instagram account, which is separate from my Thrills and Stitches Instagram account, and it is quite large and it's a bit unruly and unshapely, but it worked. It did work. I don't have that dress anymore, but it was cute. You know, I was quite pleased with this first attempt of making something. And as you can see, I actually drafted it on literal baking paper because I didn't have any other type of paper. And I held on to this for quite a while. But I think it's fair to assume that I won't need this anymore, so I'm gonna kick it out. I have sorted out so much crap from this folder, and while it still doesn't look extremely organized, for me it really is. So we're starting off with the hand drafted basic bodice blocks. I have a couple of modified ones in here. These are my starting points for my patterns most of the time. I like to use these when I make a prototype before I digitize a pattern. And then we follow up with all of my already released patterns. They're all in here. One version of them. The one that I had the most duplicates of was definitely the poppy blouse. I think I had like 4 of it, so I had to only keep one, and they're all in here now, which is fantastic. And then we move on to my older hand drafted patterns, the ones that I wanted to keep. There are actually a few gems in here that I think would be a great addition to my Etsy shop as well. For example, this jumpsuit here that I made last year or 2 years ago, I can't quite remember. This is a really great wardrobe staple, and I held on to this first draft of it because I think this might be a great pattern for me to work on this fall. Here is my Selkie dress that I made in the first year of me being on YouTube. That's still one of my favorites. It's in my wardrobe. My first Vampire's Wife edition dress is also still in here. This was a great fit, so I held on to it, although I do now have the Amelia dress, which is a pattern on my Etsy shop that kind of like emulates the look. I still wanted to hold on to this first version. My Beyonce concert outfit pattern is also still in here. Also in here is the Chanel suit that I made quite some time ago, and that's also a really great pattern that I might want to digitize this fall. So yeah, overall this is quite organized now. And I also found a number of hand painted illustrations. That is also a pandemic memento, so to speak. I didn't have an iPad back then. I think that was 2020. I don't think I had my iPad yet, and so I kind of like tried to just draw a few things by hand. And compared to the skills, my hand drawing skills I had when I went to fashion school, this is awful. Next time I'm in Austria, I might try and find my sketchbook that I had when I was a teenager, which I loved anime and manga, so I was quite good at drawing those. I think you can probably still see that influence a little bit in my illustrations here. So these are actually not that good. I have some very good ones at home that I need to try and find, but I am still gonna hold on to these. This is quite a big thing probably in a few years when I look back, thinking about what the pandemic was like. I was literally sitting in my living room just drawing these. So now that we have actually sorted the patterns, let's go and create these leaflets that we're gonna put in. All right, so I have opened Canva here, and what I've done is I've opened a document that is a portrait document in size A4 because that's what I'm working with here, and it's plain right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just add a few elements here. For starters, I probably want to have the name of the dress, if I have the name of the dress. So say for example, the Ophelia dress was the first sewing pattern I ever made. And then we want to add a sort of image grid here, probably 2 images, 2 frames. One for a picture of me wearing the pattern and one for the illustration. And then what I also want to add is a little description of the pattern. So for example, corseted midi dress with puff sleeve, and we also want to add the year this pattern was made. So the Ophelia dress would have been 2023. And that's that. That's how easy this is. I don't actually need any more information. So when I now fill in the empties, that's what that looks like. Easy peasy. Now I just have to do this about probably 20 more times. So let's go. So it seems I don't have a printed version of either of those two. So a good reason to remake them at some point. I actually did want to make another Sally dress. I actually also wanted to re-film the tutorial for the Sally dress because I know I can do better. So I'll keep those in here for now. I am quite pleased with this. So each of the patterns now has a little cover leaflet so I can immediately see what is in here, which is quite nice. And that actually completes my task for today. Still big, much smaller than it was before, and also much lighter. All right, that's that. That's how I am going to organize my sewing patterns from now on. I don't think there was anything particularly revolutionary about this. This is what I assume most people organize their sewing patterns like. So they either put them in a folder like me, or they put them in envelopes and put them away in storage. And I'm glad that I finally did this. I'm glad that I now have easy access to all of my sewing patterns. I'm glad that I got rid of all the stuff that I did not need, and that I know at a glance now what I need to grab when I want to make a particular dress or project. So that's amazing. That's exactly what I set out to do. This was a short video today, I know, but I promise there's more coming your way. This whole folder situation actually happened a couple of days ago. I've since been very busy and I've been working on sewing patterns that I want to release very soon. One of them is the Soleil dress, which I debuted in my destashing marathon just a couple weeks ago. A lot of you really loved her, so I figured since the pattern was already digitized, why not release it? And that's gonna happen next week, so I hope I see you there. I also want to call out that I've been super organized in the last weeks, and not only have I cleaned up my sewing pattern folder, I've actually also given all of my digital sewing patterns on Etsy a new look. They now all come with line art illustrations, which is a big step forward for me. And I've also introduced a new offer to my Etsy shop, which I want to make you aware of. If you buy 3 or more of my sewing patterns, you will get 30% off your total order amount. The link to my Etsy shop is in my description. Go check it out. See you soon. Bye-bye.